For almost 100 years, there's been one NFL franchise that's just a story of wild extremes. A team with this incredible history of on-field glory. We're talking championship parades, Hall of Fame legends, but also a history just buried in deep-seated controversy and turmoil. This is the story of the Washington Commanders.
So you gotta ask, right? How does a team hit the absolute top of the mountain multiple times, only to later become one of the most troubled and talked about franchises in the league? That's really the core question we're digging into today, as we trace the Commanders' journey from a powerhouse to a pariah, and maybe, just maybe, back again. And a huge part of this whole story is identity. I mean, the franchise hasn't just had its fortunes change, it has literally changed its name 5 times. It started as the Boston Braves in 1932, and now here we are with the Washington Commanders. This is a team that has constantly been forced to redefine itself.
Okay, so to really get how they ended up here, we've got to rewind all the way back to the start, to a history that is, let's just say, as celebrated as it is complicated.
So yeah, it all kicks off in Boston, believe it or not DC, July 9th, 1932. A businessman, George Preston Marshall, gets an NFL franchise. And this guy, Marshall, wow, he would end up shaping everything about this team, the good and the bad, for decades to come. And that brings us right into the Marshall era, an era that honestly perfectly sums up this team's whole conflicted legacy. You've got amazing success on the field, happening right alongside this deep, enduring shame off of it.
So they moved to DC in '37, and bam, they're an instant powerhouse. I mean, they win the NFL championship in their very first season in the city. And that was just the start. Between 36 and 45, they were just dominant, showing up in 6 championship games and grabbing 2 titles.
But all that winning? It was happening under this huge, dark cloud. Marshall was a staunch segregationist. He absolutely refused to sign any black players. So while the rest of the league was integrating, he held out, making his team the very last segregated team in the NFL. And you can really see this conflict in the images from back then. On one hand, there's Marshall, the founder. And on the other, well, look at this placard from his supporters. It says, "Keep Redskins white." It's just a really stark reminder of how these huge social battles were being fought right there in the world of sports.
So what finally forced them to change? Well, it took the federal government, specifically the Kennedy administration, stepping in. They basically said, integrate or you're not playing in your new federally owned stadium. So in 1962, Washington finally integrated, a full 16 years after the rest of the league had already moved on.
Okay, so after years of just being kind of mediocre after Marshall, the franchise was about to hit its absolute peak, a true golden age. We're talking about the Joe Gibbs dynasty.
So in 1981, the owner at the time, Jack Kent Cooke, he hires this guy, Joe Gibbs, an offensive coordinator from the Chargers. And let me tell you, this one hire, it changed everything. It kicked off the most successful run in the team's entire history. Gibbs was this offensive genius, known for his crazy innovative plays, and get this, his incredible knack for winning Super Bowls with 3 different starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, just look at that number, 3. In just 10 years, Gibbs led them to 3 Super Bowl championships. That is an absolutely incredible run of dominance. It put Washington right up there with the NFL's all-time greatest franchises.
And there they are. The proof, 3 Vince Lombardi trophies, the biggest prize in football, all won between 1982 and 1991. If you were a fan back then, this was heaven. This was the absolute pinnacle. And you know what? This era wasn't just about trophies. It was about pure personality. You had these legendary groups with awesome nicknames. The Hogs, this massive, dominant offensive line that just owned the line of scrimmage. You had the Fun Bunch and the Posse, 2 different sets of receivers famous for making huge plays and their wild touchdown celebrations. These guys weren't just players on a team, they were icons.
But just as fast as that glory arrived, it disappeared. After the owner, Jack Kent Cooke, passed away, the team was sold in 1999. And that sale, well, that brings us to a long, really difficult chapter known as the Snyder years.
And man, the difference between the 2 eras is just night and day. Under the previous owner, Jack Kent Cooke, you had a team that was always in the hunt, with 3 Super Bowls. But under Daniel Snyder's 24-year ownership, 0 Super Bowls, and only 3 playoff wins in 24 years. The franchise was just a mess, total instability, coaches coming and going, one questionable decision after another, It was a complete fall from grace.
And yeah, that free fall didn't go unnoticed. The criticism was everywhere. This quote from our source material really says it all. Snyder came to be seen as one of the worst owners in the history of professional sports. Just a total era of decay.
Okay, so that brings us to the modern era. An era where all this pressure from the outside, combined with scandals on the inside, forced the franchise to face its past and, well, completely reinvent itself.
Of course, the most obvious change was the name. For decades, people had argued that Redskins was a racial slur. And in 2020, after years of pressure, the team finally dropped it. They played as the Washington football team for 2 seasons before becoming the Commanders in 2022. But the issues here went way beyond just the team name. A 2021 independent investigation looked into the team's workplace culture, and what they found was pretty disturbing. The report confirmed all sorts of things: widespread sexual harassment, constant bullying, a real culture of intimidation. It was so bad the NFL fined them $10 million.
So when you add up all the failures on the field and all the scandals off of it, there is really only one way this could end. And it led to what fans are desperately hoping is the dawn of a brand new era.
And what a turning point it was. In 2023, the team was sold for a jaw-dropping $6.05 billion. At the time, that was the most anyone had ever paid for a sports team. This was it. The Snyder era was officially over, and a massive rebuild was about to begin.
And that rebuild now has a new face. Quarterback Jaden Daniels, picked 2nd overall in the 2024 draft. He really symbolizes the hope for a fresh start on the field, a new leader for a new era, someone who can hopefully lead the team without all that baggage from the past.
So, that leaves us with the big question, right? The turmoil seems to be over. You've got a new owner, a new name, a new franchise quarterback. But is it enough? Can the Commanders finally move on and build a future that's worthy of their past glory? You know, one that honors the greatness of the Gibbs years while leaving all the controversy behind for good? I guess only time will tell.